Hey there, Capricorn. Here again with another reading for you, and still using the Aleister Crowley deck for the general spread of cards. I am starting to incorporate some rune cards and hexagrams from the I Ching, which I cast with the coin tossing method. So, adding up the values and determining the different lines that I get from those values to build up a hexagram from the bottom up. Recently been inspired by the recent astrology podcast episode with Benebel Wen, where she was talking about the history and the use of the I Ching oracle. So trying to learn by using it because it's always been intriguing. But the hexagram that we actually got for you today, Capricorn, is hexagram number 26, which is the same hexagram that I pulled for Sagittarius's reading before this. The difference being that you had a changing yang line right here in the bottom trigram, which would indicate a transition in the energies, a sort of changeability as this trigram at the bottom becomes flame rather than heaven, which is what it is now. This is heaven under the mountain, or as the hexagram itself is known as, like the taming power of the great. But it's like this principle of stillness, of finding treasure and finding heaven within the mountain by being the principle of the mountain, the stable, secure, unchanging, unyielding force, being able to find I guess abundance or fertility in some way in that space. And when it becomes the next hexagram, which is hexagram number 22, which is grace, because of that changing line, you have flame under the mountain. And the image of this particular hexagram is like the flame at the base of the mountain that's illuminating the mountain and allowing its beauty to be perceived and appreciated. Which I think is interesting because of the story that I'm seeing in my head with this spread today, and as I'm connecting with your energy, and we'll get into that. It's relevant to this particular card right here. You got the rune Inguas or Ingus, which is the rune of fertility. And the image that sprang to mind with this card actually took me down a very specific rabbit hole in my mind. This idea of willow sticks being placed into the ground, and these sticks like growing. They're like these cuttings are propagated in the ground and become these willow trees. And where this took me in my mind was to the Chinampas in Tenochtitlan, which is the city that precedes Mexico City, the empire capital that was built in the middle of this lake by the Mexica, or by the Aztecs. And the way that they were able to build this city in the middle of a lake is through the use of these chinampas. So it's like they put down these 4 posts, these 4 willow sticks into the ground at the base of the lake, and then they weave like basically a basket using these posts in the lake, and then they fill the space inside of this basket with with soil that they carve out from the lake bottom, and then filling it with like fish and all kinds of like compostable items into the middle of this thing, and they fill it up and they build up this little artificial island that they're able to grow crops on, this really fertile space. And the overarching theme that I was feeling with this image that I was getting was this sense of finding fertility and abundance where you are, like rather than moving into a new space or a new environment or something. It's rather like staying still and appreciating the resources you have available to you in this moment, in this space, and using them to create something, using them to manifest abundance in some form. And I feel like this is just like only confirmed by the cards that I have for the rest of your spread, and we're going to kind of get into that, and hopefully I'll be able to break down the connections. But for your significator card, we have this Princess of Cups right here. And that's supposed to be in the position that's representing you. So being in touch with your inner states, your inner emotions, maybe connecting with your dreams, or your heart space in some way, and allowing the visionary part of yourself to explore and to experiment while not necessarily physically moving, like not physically doing things, which is kind of a strange energy when connecting with Capricorn, because Capricorn likes to move mountains, in order to sort of impose its will upon the outer world to create something physical and manifest. Like instead, it feels kind of like you're turning the mountain moving to flying around in your dreams, in your visionary space, and that's kind of like you're making like an infusion. Like it's almost like making a tea out of the dream material that you can use, that you can drink, that acts as like a fuel source in your day-to-day life, in your waking life. Kind of a weird imagery here. But covering you, we have the Prince of Cups. And given the fact that he's right next to this Princess of Cups, it's like this exchange, this partnership, this masculine and feminine principle coming together. And maybe this is like the like I'm hearing like the receptacle and that which is housed within it, like the vessel and that which the vessel contains. Like maybe it's the basket, the chinampa basket, and the fertile soil that's put inside of it and built up within it. And there's this space of, could be like sexual dynamic, some kind of, I wanted to say consolidation, but it was like blending with the word copulation in my head. Like the meeting of these two energies is what's building up this fertile soil and allowing the city in the middle of the lake to build up and out of nothing, out of nothing but like a lake. That you can't build buildings on a lake, but if you build it up in this way, if you build up the soil and you build up the earth and you basically create land mass out of not necessarily nothing, but out of something that wasn't there before, wasn't there previously. And then crossing you, we have this Two of Wands right here, which to me is like this interaction between these two opposing principles, this Princess of Cups and this Prince of Cups. Maybe there's a relevant water sign. First in mind is like Cancer, because Cancer is opposite you, Capricorn, but it could be Pisces, could be Scorpio. Or just kind of exemplify watery traits, water sign traits, maybe be more of the visionary type, in touch with their emotions, in touch with the traditionally romantic ideals, very artistic, very creative, very colorful, maybe even flamboyant in some way. And it's again, maybe that's like what is providing the tea leaves that you can use in your infusion to create this compound substance that acts as a fuel or acts as a foundation for further activity, further creation, if that makes sense. Like this Prince of Cups is the one that's dredging the lake bottom to gather the fertile mud and silt that's down there to put into your basket, so to speak. And this two of Wands energy is like this meeting point, this intersection, this this copulation, this compounding of separate but not dissimilar substances or people. At the base of your reading, you have the Ten of Cups in reverse, and this sort of upward flow of the water. It's like bringing feelings, bringing emotions, bringing nutritive substances from the base of something, from the bottom up to the surface, where it's usable, but it's like there's an effort, like it's against the flow. You've had to build some sort of mechanism or some strategy of some kind to work against the natural gravity of things in order to pull this water up to the surface where you can use it. This mud, maybe, going back to the Chinampa reference. But it is very much like this energy of like dredging up from the bottom and gathering and consolidating and building upon it. Behind you, you have the priestess, the high priestess, which is the moon, and it's connected with this Princess of Cups right here. So it's like this, you, rather than busying yourself with outward activity and rather than trying to I don't know how to word this, it's like really abstract. It's like finding the answers, finding the resources on the inside first, and then that kind of reflecting back to you through your reality, like finding the fertile source within. You know, it's that mountain with the heaven within. It's that inward turned awareness that provides the realization or the resources to better approach any given circumstances. Crowning your reading, you have the Prince of Wands in reverse, and the interesting theme that I'm getting from this particular card is like a recycling of energy, like a recirculating, like you're using, reusing, repurposing what's here and now. Like you're not going elsewhere, you're not leaving this valley, you're not leaving the lake valley, you're building upon what's already there by using the resources that are already there and available to you, and being kind of creative in your approach, you know, weaving up these chinampas, the baskets, and the willow trees building up in their roots, kind of helping to stabilize and secure the floating island in place into the lake, and recycling, like composting, to build up the soil in there that you're able to build upon and grow and provide, I heard like provide nutrition, but like provide some form of self-reinforcement, by reusing and repurposing these substances. You're able to fertilize the ground for the creation, the cultivation rather of resources that can be used in other ways, for other purposes, and building this empire up from where you are without seeking outside inputs. It's like you're tapping into the cycle, you're tapping into the recycling that's right where you are and available to you now. Before you, we have the Lover's card, and this is right next to the Prince of Cups right here. So again, this like idea of partnership, of partnering up with someone who complements the watery approach that you're bringing to the table right now, and kind of helps to fertilize it in some way. Helps you to find new ways to use the resources that are right here, right now. You know, it's like he's the one that points out that there's, you know, silt and mud at the bottom of the lake that's usable and workable. Whereas you had the idea to build up the basket. It's like you didn't on your own know what to fill it with. And he was the one that was kind of like, oh, so you did this, so what we can do is this. And by kind of combining these two principles, you have this world building idea, this world building concept, this regenerative, beautifying, fertilizing, empire building space. For the current energy around you, we have I almost said the 7, the 6 of Cups in reverse. called Pleasure in this deck. And that's the middle decan of Scorpio, but interesting. It's like almost this sense of I'm hearing like drawing the curtains, like closing, sealing off a space in some way. Maybe it's this container, this basket, this vessel, and what's contained within it is this space of exploration, of feeling, of sensual experimentation and synergy, and kind of playing with the shapes and the forms, and seeing how they fit together, and what shapes they make when they're fit together, and using that as like a source of informing this process of empire building, this process of creating new earth, creating new fertile ground for the ideas to come, for the empire to come in some form. For the people around you, you have the Fool in reverse. It's interesting next to this Lover's card. It's like I'm hearing like this is not a new person, this is not a new principle, this is not a new idea. It's like it was a beginning that came before, but was kind of left in the background until this union of different approaches, of different people, of different circumstances. This union dredged it up from the past, dredged maybe somebody coming up from the past who is going to act as this Prince of Cups principle, this counterpart in the Lover's equation. It's like the Fool in reverse to me is like the one who has walked the path, the one who has gone through the journey, like they've gone around the wheel, they've been through the cycle, and they're carrying with them all of the wisdom and knowledge and experience that they've gathered along the way, and that's what's informing this. Like they've learned, they've changed, they've developed, and now their approach is more effective because there's more substance behind it. There's more awareness of how to utilize the resources. And by interacting and intersecting with your energy, it's like, oh, now it makes sense. Like I understand the purpose of the basket that I was weaving. I understand the concept of the chinampas. I understand how we can build upon the space that we have in front of us. Because I feel like until this catalyzing masculine principle that came in, it's like you had the raw material, the raw ideas in mind, and without necessarily knowing how everything could fit together, and then this principle comes in and introduces you to the cohesion aspect, like how to bring these primordial elements together to form something larger, rather than just being like little fragmented bits floating around in the water. Like this is the union of the two of you is what sets the roots and keeps it in place and allows it to expand and grow. Above the Fool, we have the Queen of Wands in reverse. Interesting. So it's like it's calling back to this recycled energy that I was talking about with this Prince of Wands in reverse right here. But what I'm seeing instead is kind of being expressed through the image of the sun with like a coronal mass ejection, but it kind of loops back in on itself and returns to the sun. So, you know, when you have those loops on the sun, those magnetic loops of plasma, and how they kind of expand and extend beyond the surface of the sun, but then like are pulled back in. It's almost like this energy of expanding and taking on new shape and form and kind of testing the boundaries and pushing and playing with them a little bit, and then bringing what's been learned and integrating it back. For the final outcome, we have the Two of Cups in reverse. That's that first decan of Cancer. And given the fact that it's present with the Lovers in the spread and with these two suit cards that are next to each other and clearly like displaying some form of partnership, some form of coming together, I feel like this Two of Cups is maybe I'm hearing like don't run out of steam, like don't run away from this, don't it's not quite right either. It's like don't it's like the union happens, but I feel like there's potentially an obstacle between allowing it to sort of blossom to its fullest capacity. Like if only this wall wasn't in place, if only this boundary or barrier or sense of holding back wasn't there, then you know you could move forward hand in hand and build an empire together in some fashion. But I feel like there's this like these two opposing magnets, like they're pushing away from each other, like that force needs to be worked past in order to reach that state. Like it's not like the magnets aren't right, it's just there needs to be like a flip away from the approach. You know, and if we go back to hexagram number 22, which is where your hexagram sort of transitions into this new form with the fire at the base of the mountain lighting it up and allowing it to be appreciated for its beauty. It's like maybe there's some kind of illuminating moment, some kind of breakthrough moment. It's like, yeah, you started off with the treasure within the mountain. You started off with this lake full of potential at the base of this mountain, and everything's in place, all the resources are in place, the ideas are there, and then with this catalyst, it's like, you know, actions happening, it's movement taking place, it's showing the way. It's like it's the city lights in the city at the center of this lake reflecting back from the mountains and showing the progress that's been made. Like something about that is relevant to this process of harmonizing, of boundary breaking, of working past the obstacle that's in the way, of allowing this to blossom to its fullest capacity. Like maybe returning to a stillness, returning to a period of inaction and inward introspection and reflection on the past, and thinking about the journey that's led up to this moment, and that kind of helping to break down the barrier. And I'm trying to listen and see if there's like anything else that wants to come through, but I think that was pretty much the gist of it. I do want to read some of the associations with your hexagrams that came up. So the first hexagram that we started with, hexagram number 26, which is heaven under the mountain. The taming power of the great is what it's called. Let's see. It says, the creative is tamed by Ken, which is the mountain, keeping still. This produces great power, a situation in contrast to that of the ninth hexagram, the taming power of the small, in which the creative is tamed by the gentle alone. There, 1 weak line must tame 5 strong lines, but here, 4 strong lines, which are the unbroken yang lines, are restrained by 2 weak or broken yin lines. In addition to a minister, there is a prince, and the restraining power, therefore, is far stronger. Interesting, as I'm thinking of the Prince of Cups right here next to the Princess of Cups. Maybe the minister and the prince. The hexagram has a threefold meaning, expressing different aspects of the concept, holding firm. Heaven within the mountain gives the idea of holding firm in the sense of holding together. The trigram Ken, which holds the trigram Qian still, gives the idea of holding firm in the sense of holding back. The third idea is that of holding firm in the sense of caring for and nourishing. This last is suggested by the fact that a strong line at the top, which is the ruler of the hexagram, is honored and tended as a sage. The third of these meanings also attaches specifically to this strong line at the top, which represents the sage. To hold firmly to great creative powers and store them up, as set forth in this hexagram, there is need of a strong, clear-headed man who is honored by the ruler. The trigram Qian points to strong creative power. Ken indicates firmness and truth. Both point to light and clarity and to the daily renewal of character. Only through such daily self-renewal can a man continue to the height of his powers. And obviously, take the gender stuff as you will. Force of habit helps to keep order in quiet times, but in periods when there is a great storing up of energy, everything depends on the power of the personality. However, since the worthy are honored, as in the case of the strong personality entrusted with leadership by the ruler, it is an advantage not to eat at home, but rather to earn one's bread by entering upon public office. Such a man is in harmony with heaven, therefore even great and difficult undertakings, such as crossing the great water, succeed. Heaven within the mountain points to hidden treasures. In the words and deeds of the past, there lies hidden a treasure that men may use to strengthen and elevate their own characters. The way to study the past is not to confine oneself to mere knowledge of history, but through application of this knowledge to give actuality to the past. Very interesting. And the second line from the bottom is the changing line that I cast, which turns hexagram number 26, I believe is what this was, right? Yeah, hexagram 26 to hexagram 22, which is grace. This is fire at the base of the mountain, the flame at the base of the mountain, the clinging at the keeping still. So let's see. It says, this hexagram shows a fire that breaks out of the secret depths of the earth, and blazing up illuminates and beautifies the mountain, the heavenly heights, this dredging up of the energy that I was talking about earlier. Grace beauty of form is necessary in any union if it is to be well ordered and pleasing rather than disordered and chaotic. Grace brings success. However, it is not the essential or fundamental thing. It is only the ornament, and therefore be used sparingly and only in little things. In the lower trigram of fire, a yielding line comes between two strong lines and makes them beautiful, but the strong lines are the essential content, and the weak line is the beautifying form. In the upper trigram, that's interesting. That was like the vessel and that which it contains. And that which contains is what makes it beautiful. It's interesting. In the upper trigram of the mountain, the strong line takes the lead, so that here again the strong element must be regarded as the decisive factor. In nature, we see in the sky the strong light of the sun. The life of the world depends on it. But this strong, essential thing is changed and given pleasing variety by the moon and the stars. In human affairs, aesthetic form comes into being when traditions exist that, strong and abiding like mountains, are made pleasing by a lucid beauty. By contemplating the forms existing in the heavens, we come to understand time and its changing demands. Through contemplation of the forms existing in human society, it becomes possible to shape the world. The fire, whose light illuminates the mountain and makes it pleasing, does not shine far. In the same way, beautiful form suffices to brighten and to throw light upon matters of lesser moment, but important questions cannot be decided in this way. They require greater earnestness. Very interesting, right? It's like the deeper you delve into the I Ching, the more interesting and beautiful it becomes. But yeah, I'm hoping that this provides some maybe answer that you're seeking or perspective on your current circumstances, some confirmation or clarity. And I hope that the message finds you well. Maybe read into the Chinampas of the Mexica Empire. It's super interesting. It's a permacultural form that's kind of gaining in importance, and or at least interest behind it is rising. So maybe something to look into. They're also providing like very valuable habitat for the axolotl, which are these little salamander fish things that are super cute, but they're critically endangered and rely on the habitats that are created by the canals between the Chinampas, which still exist in like the Xochimilco district or part of Mexico City, where the lake still remains, because most of the lake that was there back in the time of the Mexica has been drained and cleared out by the Spanish and built upon. So now the entire city is built over where the lake used to be. But this little district in Xochimilco, I believe is what it's called, still has lake water and still has the original Chinampas, and they're trying to build more Chinampas to provide habitat for these endangered animals, while also providing good food and regenerating the landscape in that way. But they're working with the resources that are there and available to them in their present locale and with their given abilities. So something I feel is valid to the energy that I was getting connected with in this reading. Working with where you are and what you have, and creating beauty and abundance by the application of will and activity, idea and movement, and recycling and composting and recirculating. But yeah, wishing you the best, Capricorn. This was a interesting reading. I liked this one. Hoping it finds you well. Take care, y'all.